I am really tired of leftists because I know that prostitution is always going to be a popular thing for society to talk about. The issue is that people feel entitled to sex workers. They feel entitled to talk about our lives, and they kind of consume us as entertainment as a society. So even all the documentaries about the horrors of prostitution and stuff like that, that's all entertainment. It is commodified. All those horrors create this idea of the underground. And the underground was created by Western civilization. There was a book that I might link in the bio if I can find it, but it talks about how the Western world created the underground, a place where all the poor people are, the lunatics, the criminals, the prostitutes, the beggars, the drug users, all those people. And there was an idea of that for poor people. And that's how the system justifies persecuting those people because they're bad people just naturally. That's kind of the idea of it. So leftists kind of fall into this kind of line of thinking and they support these oppressive systems subconsciously. And a lot of it is because they would have to strip that down within themselves, this internalized horophobia and the privileges that they may have. They tend to speak for sex workers or feel entitled to be critical of our experiences and our industry as a whole, even though it's literally not their place. You don't have the right to be critical of the sex industry or sex workers' existence because it's not your shit. Simple. Like, it's not your shit to criticize or to be critical of it because it's our experience. We are the workers. And this is where things get kind of weird because, you have people who are Marxist or leftist in some form, and they'll tell you that their revolution is worker focused, but it changes when they get to sex workers. All of a sudden, everyone should have an opinion about whether or not sex workers should exist and whether the sex industry should be destroyed. They think it's everyone's right to be able to determine that, and that sex workers kind of, we shouldn't be the ones dictating anything, kind of like they should be able to put in their input and stuff. And this wouldn't be allowed in any other social movement for like privileged assholes who have no idea what they're talking about to come in and basically dictate the terms for marginalized people. Like, it just wouldn't be allowed in any other movements, and it would be seen as not okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go to your union, right? Let's say you work for a retail chain or whatever. I'm not going to go there and like speak for their experiences and dictate the terms for them, right? I'm not going to do that. It's not my place, you see? But as sex workers, we have to be the ones leading the revolution and defining what freedom is for us and defining what exploitation is for us. So very often, because we are so stigmatized in society, sex workers often feel the need to fit these criterias that other people have of us, right? So I'm never going to tell my civilian friends, oh, guess, like, I just had an amazing appointment. My client bought me a cake for my birthday and then licked it out of my pussy. And that's what I did for the hour, and I got paid $1,000 for that, right? I'm never gonna tell them that story. I'm never gonna tell them like, oh, today my client had a major breakthrough. He finally sucked the dick that he always wanted to suck, and I just got to watch him have that experience, and I was paid for that. Or like, oh, I just had a client that works in entertainment or is a politician, and I'm trying to radicalize them, and I'm changing their ideas on a lot of things. I'm never going to tell them that because they're not open to that kind of stuff, right? Like, you can't really do that. Because I'm a sex worker, I feel the need to fit these two boxes that people make for sex work. And one of them is, oh my God, I'm so liberated. Like, I have so much free time and everything is great and I make so much money for nothing and blah, 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 right? So, like, a very privileged kind of role. And then the other one is like, oh, I'm just doing this to survive and I blah, 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 like sad, torture, sad porn, basically, like, is what you're giving them. Because the reality is a bit in between. Most sex workers' experience when it comes to the sex industry is pretty liberating. It's trying to make your bills, trying to pay your bills, trying to pay for your housing and stuff like that. And then, working, trying to go into the sex industry for the first time, and then after an hour making up enough money to live for like 2 weeks in an hour, right? And that experience is so liberating, and an experience that almost all sex workers have had, but you don't see it in media. You don't ever hear it talked about. And it's because sex workers really can't talk about it without people losing their minds. People need the sex industry to be horrible and literal torture and even slave-like in order for them to accept that people in the sex industry deserve to exist, that sex workers deserve to exist. Like, that is the criteria by which they will accept us. And that's fucked up, but that's on them. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel the need to fit into that standard, and other sex workers do as well. And they tend to play up that role because of that, you know? And this is like an experience that I've had with all of my sex worker circles. Like, they all feel this need to pretend and act in this role because you kind of need to justify yourself. The truth of the matter is, sex workers are considered the lowest in society. Like, when I came out to my parents and they found out what I did, my dad literally told me that he would prefer that I be dead. Like, that is the extent of hatred that we have as a society against sex workers. It's that deep. We're like right there next to beggars, homeless people, and drug users. Right there with people who are seen as a problem. Like, our very existence is seen as a problem that needs to be eradicated. And it sucks. The truth of the matter is, like, we are all taught to justify our experience to you. Okay, so like a lot of drug users and homeless people will spend fucking hours explaining to you why they are in the state that they're in. They're like, oh, well, you know, I tried my best and this and that and this and that and the third. But the truth of the matter is, fuck you, I shouldn't have to explain my existence to you. Right? Like, I shouldn't have to. Our existence is not a problem. Like, we are not a problem. You know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't have to work in order to survive. As a sex worker, I want to eliminate work. I feel like often leftists and other people tend to view us as like stupid. Like, we are not aware that other jobs exist, like that we exist outside of society, that we are chained up, and that we just have no idea that other work exists out there in the world. Like, it's so weird. It's like, of course we know other work exists. Other work sucks. We understand that work sucks. Our revolution as sex workers is to eliminate work, is to eliminate the idea of work and the necessity to work in order to live. That's our whole point. Sex work is the thing that we have found leads us closer to not working. That's the whole point of sex work. So I entered sex work for many reasons, but one of them was to escape all other forms of labor. And in fact, most sex workers enter the sex industry to escape all other forms of labor. Literally, that's it. A lot of leftists do not want to save sex workers from work. They want to save sex workers from sex work. In other words, they want to shame, stigmatize, and force us out of sex work and into other forms of labor, which are worse and less compensating. That's their liberation model. That's it. Like, they're so dumb, and I just hate them so very much because they don't understand our reality. And a lot of it is because we kind of have to lie to them in order to get them to even accept us or respect us in any way. We still live in a society that is very Puritan when it comes to its values. So we have to fake it for them. And it's like really annoying because then they'll like do all these think pieces about sex work and they just feel entitled to talk about how sad it is and how they just need to get rid of it. So a lot of them will tell you that sex work will always exist in a capitalistic economy because the idea is that when the revolution comes, sex work just won't exist, which is hilarious because yes, it will. They've done studies of this, like back in the progressive era, there was an idea that organized crime was responsible for sex slavery. They called it white slavery because they believed that white women were being enslaved into the sex industry. And all the vice divisions, because the FBI used to be called the Bureau of Investigations, and it literally became a federal agency when they created the White Slave Division. So they actually created a census of prostitution, and they started measuring the numbers and trying to figure out how to eliminate and reduce the numbers. Like, it's eugenics, you guys. Like, that's how all these immigration systems, the FBI, how police departments, and all these other things were created. They were created on this idea that prostitutes are enslaved people, that they are exploited people, blah, blah, blah. And literally, when this was created, this was in the 1900s. So even a century ago, they already fucking knew that their narrative was false. Like, literally, the Vice Division concluded that the drug cartels are actually not the ones leading prostitutions. They're not the ones creating it. In fact, most prostitution is localized. It is a localized community. Sex workers create personal relationships. They create community that supports them and gives benefits to the people that they are serving. But again, the way that Marxists and other leftists tend to sell this idea is that we are, enslaved and that we are alienated from love and intimacy, right? Because apparently all the other workers and people under capitalism are not as alienated from love and intimacy as we are, which is hilarious. Like, our job is literally to get off our asses and to meet people on a personal level and to have like a very deep connection with people. But no, apparently, like, we don't know how to create community, and we're just like completely alienated from that. I would say sex workers are better at creating community than most leftists are, especially the virgins and the people who just like have Puritan ideas of like sex and relationships. Like, fuck you. Whatever. I mean, that's your kink, but it's like really fucked up, this view that drives a wedge between all other workers and sex workers. They fundamentally see sex workers as a problem, but they want liberation for all workers. They just view sex workers as a problem that needs to be fixed. Like, our numbers need to be reduced. And that's how you can measure how good a society is. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of sex workers being used to prove that a society is superior, okay? Because that's literally just, that's the justification for white supremacy. It's like our society is better and pure because we persecute the homeless, the prostitutes, the unclean people. We persecute them and eradicate them from our society. That's the whole thing. Hitler did this. The Soviet Union did this. They had laws against sex workers. They tried to save them by putting them to work. Like, that's how they did it. That's not liberation. I don't want liberation through hard work. I want liberation from work. Like, there's nothing revolutionary about this idea. And I'm sick and tired of them getting, like, Marxist philosophers who are bigots against sex workers and see us as different and as a problem that needs to be fixed. You know, quoting those people to justify their bigotry. Like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I didn't go to college. I didn't fucking read Karl Marx. I don't read these academic Marxist people because honestly, I don't give a fuck. I'm a fucking worker. I'm a fucking sex worker. And I don't need to read their bullshit. Period. End of story. I don't care. Like, it's so weird that they're so like ignorant that they'll literally quote them and kind of make fun of me because I don't know their names and I don't know what the fuck they write and I don't care about what they do. I mean, they're fucking dead. I'm the fucking worker right now and I'm telling you what I need and I'm telling you to shut up about these issues because they're not your issues. They are my life. It's my livelihood. I should be the one leading this revolution. It should be about the workers, not about what some dumbass like person who read Marxist theory thinks about my industry and my livelihood. Like, fuck you. You don't know what I want. I should be the one deciding what's liberating and empowering for me. Sorry for this rant, you guys. I'm just like honestly tired of these leftists because it's just like, you wouldn't do this to any other person. You wouldn't do this to the LGBT community, to black people, to like, oh, I have a black friend, so I can be critical about black issues. It's like, no, bitch. If you aren't part of that specific marginalized community, it's not your right to be critical of their shit. It's my shit. Like, you know, I'm the one who knows about this. I live and do it. It is my job. Okay, I'm done. Thank you all for listening.